more efficient in the way we televise golf down the line.
So, Mark Rolfing from NBC Golf Channel and JR DeGroote from West Hawaii Today. Mark, you were a real pioneer back in the day when websites were beginning to be popular, and you had your Golf Hawaii show. So you've watched the evolution of even people watching golf shows because you created a lot of that. And sounds to me like you're just thinking the way you always have, is, you know, of getting ahead of the curve and trying to share that with your associates. And I'm sure there's others that agree with you to a big degree.
I hope you're right, Emily. You know, the real issue in today's television world is that people have DVRs. They have so many different ways to watch programming that if you have an event that's not a live event, if you have a taped show like Golf Hawaii was 15 years ago, let's say, people can skip the commercials. They can skip, you know, sponsor mentions of things that pay for it all. But in the case of big time live sporting events, they can't. That's why the greatest value, I think, for sponsors and TV networks in paying rights fees is always going to be in the big live sporting events. But with golf, we've got to figure out a way to make it still viable and not have the costs keep skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Well, this week here, I mean, what storylines are getting you excited about the champion story, you know, kicking off here?
You know, I think the Langer story just continues to intrigue me. He looks 30 years younger than his age. Year after year, he's having these seasons where we say he can't possibly do it again next year, and then he does. I just wonder how long is he going to be able to do this, and I think the answer is for a while. I don't see an end to it. And you look at all these other players and listen to them, everybody's trying to figure out a way to beat Langer.
Yeah.
It's like he's a different kind of a target on the leaderboard, and that's the way Tiger was 18 years ago.
Is it becoming a mental thing for
I
other
think
golfers?
I think it is. You know, they know Langer is not the kind of player that's going to beat himself. You know, with some players, you think, oh, there's a big mistake in him. There's a triple bogey in him, or maybe there's some give up in a guy, or who knows what.
Yeah.
But with Langer, there's only one way to beat him, and that is to beat him. He's not going to beat himself. You got to go out and beat him, and so I think mentally that puts added pressure on the rest of the players when they're seeing his name.
Yeah. And here, a lot of the talk has been about the wind last year and some wind in the projection. I mean, from a commentator's point of view, how does that change this tournament? Because this course has been known to be easy if it's down.
You know, I would think that the chasers, the pursuers, always would like to see some wind. Everybody would like to have a nice calm Friday or Thursday in this case, first round. And it's actually pretty calm today. But if you get behind at Hualalai, if you get yourself 4 or 5 shots behind after the first round, and the course plays easy the next 2 days, you have almost no chance of catching up. It is so hard to make up 5 shots in these calm conditions that I would think for pursuers, anybody that gets a little behind after today's round, they'll want to see some wind.
And what's the best part about having a tournament at Hualalai, on the Big Island?
The people,
Yeah.
the feeling, just coming here, it's like coming home. I've had several players say that to me. It's not like going to another stop on a year-long tour. It feels like coming home, and as beautiful as it is and as impeccably conditioned as it is, I still think it's kind of the mana of the place that is so attractive. It's so compelling for everybody. So I think that's what they look forward to more than anything.
And nice to see so many making their home on the Big Island, or part-time homes.
Yeah.
You know, Tom Watson certainly made this the Hualalai community his and Hillary's community, and
Yeah, and we're thinking about Hillary this
Crenshaw
week,
got-
by
yeah,
the way, who's
yeah.
back in Kansas City, and be tough, Hillary.
Well, you can certainly speak for that. You've been there and done that, fought the cancer battle, and just do you want to share a few thoughts about that journey you had, along with Billy Kahu Mitchell and Hillary, and
Yeah.
a lot of your associates and friends?
There's always hope. There is always hope, and there were times when I could have easily lost hope, and starting with the diagnosis, which was dire, but then even during the treatment, there were times when I would start dragging my chin a little and saying, why me, oh, woe is me, but I don't think I ever lost hope. And to me, the message that I know that I have to carry forward from now, whether it's Hillary or anybody else, is that there's always hope, and you got to have that.
And what's helpful from people when you're in that situation? Just hearing from them and
hearing from people, and probably hearing stories of success like mine. There are a lot of golfers right now that are battling cancer themselves, that are from my era as we get older.
Some of your people from the PGA Tour staff right now. I looked for Joe Terry the other day.
Some of the people on the staff. I have 3 either players or wives on the regular PGA Tour that are patients at MD Anderson right now. Lisa Sink, my good friend Stewart's wife, Ryan Palmer's wife, Brian Watts, I don't know if you remember that name, but Mark O'Meara beat him in a playoff to win the Open. Brian Watts is down there fighting tongue cancer right now. So as we all go on in years, more and more, it's going to become part of our lives. But to everybody, that's battling it, whether you're a patient or a caregiver, just keep up the hope.
Well, you and Debbie have been great about getting the message out of how grateful you've been, and the great care you got at MD Anderson. And
I got a lot of great care there, but I will tell you that the role of the caregiver is so underestimated. It is equally as difficult on the caregiver as it is on the patient.
Because they take on 2 lifestyles, right?
They do. And I know Tom Watson is, really facing that same thing right now. So, it's just as important for everybody to keep in their prayers the caregiver, I think, as it is the patient.
And Mark Rolfing, NBC Golf Channel, you've covered with ABC, you've been covering the PGA Tour for a long time. Some nice news that the PGA Tour champions are going back to Warwick Hills for the Alley Challenge. And it'll be many of the players that played when they were on the PGA Tour. They know the Flint community, the Grand Blanc community, and Detroit community. And you're such an ambassador for Chicago, so you know the importance of cities and all that tie-in with the players when they're moving through a city. So some comments on that past history of the Buick Open, and now those same players going back to Warwick Hills.
Well, I think it's tremendous for that area. If you look at the big metropolitan areas in America, like Chicago and New York and LA and places like that, Dallas, there's so much going on that a golf tournament that comes or goes in those big markets doesn't impact the community nearly as much as the more medium level communities. And even if you look at what the Big Island, if you think about what this tournament literally has done, and you talked about the people that have second homes here now, or that come here on holiday. You see Stephen Ames, Vijay Singh, these guys have become like island boys in a lot of ways. I think the more medium level and smaller communities are the places where tours like the Champions Tour should go, back to places like Flint, back to more sort of mid-level markets, as opposed to trying to fight the PGA Tour or even bigger other sports in places like
that's been a big
LA.
announcement for the Detroit area. Mark O'Meara was there recently with, for the announcement as well, and because they know that community, and the Detroit community is nearby. And when we were kids growing up, we all went out to the Buick Open. Like you say, it made an impact throughout the state.
Yeah.
And it's an important one.
I think you're going to see golf more and more doing that. If you look at the U.S. Open this year, so Chicago has had 13 U.S. Opens on 8 different courses, which is more than any other city in America. U.S. Open this year went basically to a tiny little community in the middle of Wisconsin. And it was just a rousing success. And I think it shows that golf is so compelling when you have the best players or you have the biggest names like Champions Tour. You can have successful events in smaller markets. That's not necessarily the case with other sports. You got to have the stars in other sports to really exist in the major markets. And golf, I think these tours, Champions Tour and LPGA particularly, should be looking at places like Springfield, Illinois, and Des Moines, Iowa. Look what the Solheim Cup did in Des Moines,
Sure.
Iowa. It was just massive crowds, and it was wildly successful.
I talked with Jack Berry yesterday, longtime golf writer from Detroit News, I'm sure you know, and he was saying that, oh yeah, I'm sure John Daly will be staying with Kid Rock, just like he did whenever he played in the Buick Open. So yeah, they all have their friends that they've made over the years, and just like we all do out here, you know. So that you're right, it does make a difference when a tournament like that comes to a smaller community. And Mark, just looking at the state of golf, and I think people seem really optimistic. I had a wonderful conversation with Wes Wailehua and also from the Aloha Section PGA, and also Greg McLaughlin from the president of the PGA Tour Champions, who did run the Tiger Woods Foundation and the Nissan Open, and everybody's really optimistic about not just the Champions Tour but the state of golf.
I think for the first time in a long time, golf is starting to address its core fundamental problems. I didn't really see that happening for the last decade to the extent it needed to. I saw kind of the dust being swept under the carpet a little too much. But if you look at golf, industry-wide, there's three issues. The game is too difficult, it takes too long, and it costs too much. Almost any challenge or issue or problem can fall into one of those categories. And what I'm starting to see with golf and the industry leaders in golf now is they're figuring out ways to address those things. They're figuring out ways to get more instruction to people so that they can at an earlier age learn how to play the game. They're figuring out ways to have the equipment be better so that it people can be more successful at the game. I am totally getting on the bandwagon of bifurcation. I don't think the equipment has to have the same regulations for junior golfers as it does for the best players.
Explain that word.
Well, bifurcation basically would be having two sets of equipment. So in Pop Warner football, you have a smaller football than the NFL.
Okay.
In the high school, you have a smaller football. You know, kids' hands grow. There is no reason why junior golfers have to play with the same regulated equipment, in my mind, that the best players in the world. So I think golf's got to start going in that direction. In terms of time, it takes too long. In today's world, people don't have as much time. The reason that Top Golf has become so wildly successful, one of the reasons is you can go play for an hour or two. I've started really going down the path of coming up with plans where people can pay and play the amount of golf that they have time for. There's no reason, if you have an hour and a half to go play golf, you shouldn't be able to play 6 holes of golf or 7 holes of golf or whatever. Almost everything we do in this world is based on the amount of time. We pay by time. An airline seat or dinner, for that matter. A 5-course French meal is going to cost more than going to McDonald's. Time is money. So I think we're now starting to look at the time aspect of it. And then the toughest one is cost. The game is just getting to the point where it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And I think, raising the revenues is going to be difficult. There's going to be a cap. So how do we lower costs? You can start with golf course maintenance, for example. Golf course maintenance is one of the reasons why driving the price of green fees up is the only way to make it work. As opposed to, if we started maintaining our courses a little differently, if the grass didn't have to be lush green and take so much water and so much fertilizer, so much attention from the green staff, if people didn't expect that the greens had to be 13 on the stimp meter like they see at Hualalai, and that we didn't have to mow the greens in the morning, let's say. We could mow them in the afternoon, and then you could start people off both nines in the morning because the maintenance guys wouldn't be mowing the greens on the backside. Now you're lowering the cost, and you're getting more people out there, and you're introducing new people to the game, and you're letting them play 2 hours of golf instead of 4.
Are those the conversations you're hearing, like at the state of the golf?
Starting to hear them
you
from
had
west
last
of the
fall?
Aloha section. I'm starting to hear it from all of the stakeholders in the game that are really the decision makers.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Jack Nicklaus is the face of our game in a lot of ways, and a great spokesman, but he's not making the decisions at the individual facilities. We have to get down to those levels in order to really enact some change that is going to be meaningful in addressing. It's too difficult, it takes too long, it costs too much.
Well, it's always fun to wrap up with it. Yeah.
Our backyard golf course is having the same issue right now, the Waikoloa golf course.
Right.
You know, the fees pay for that, and you know, there's a large movement saying shut the course down and turn it into a park.
But now they've discovered, we had this conversation last night, I don't know if you were with me, but somewhere people forget that a park needs to be watered.
Yeah.
All those things still need to happen. There's no revenue like the golf course brings into our, we both live in Waikoloa Village,
Yeah.
brings into our community.
Here's an interesting thing. Ben Crenshaw and I talked about this a great deal Tuesday at Kapalua, because we're going to have to renovate that course. It's almost 30 years old and it needs some renovation. But we were talking about brown versus green. So in Scotland, forever and ever, the home of golf, the golf courses have had sort of a brownish tint to them. And that's why people play golf for 10 pounds over there. The maintenance budgets are minuscule compared to ours. But the interesting thing about brown, the lusher green a golf course is, the more difficult it is for the average player. People are going to shoot lower scores, drive the ball further, and really have a whole lot more fun on a golf course that's slightly brownish than on one that's
They get more
green.
roll, they might have
get
more lucky
roll,
bounces.
More bounce, you can run the ball up, you can play
Sure.
along the ground instead of in
Play
the
a
air.
lot of different kinds of games.
So it's almost like we go to all this trouble to spend all this money to make a course look a certain way, when in fact the two things that happen are you have to charge people a lot more money and they don't play as well.
Sometimes less is more is good, not just in golf, right?
There you go. That was a little bit of a rant, wasn't it?
No, but it's so true, and I think people are really coming around
I
to
think
that.
they're starting to realize it.
Whether it's a party they go to, or the way you put on a fundraiser, or the way you organize events, like you're talking about, how much do you have to do with TV to make
You
it
gotta be
worthwhile?
more efficient. You gotta be more efficient.
Well, I got two things for you to close.
Okay.
You said you're going to go see Tiger, and you saw him at his first tournament, and now you're seeing him now. What do you think of the comeback? Is this one just for real?
I will tell you, I saw Tiger Woods at the President's Cup for the first time. I hadn't seen him this year. That was the first time I saw him, so that's what, end of September. He looked phenomenal. He just looked healthy. He looked happy. He wasn't bulked up. He looked lean. And I saw a gleam in his eye that I hadn't seen in quite some time. And when I watched the Bahamas, I was not there. So I haven't really been there in person yet. But I saw an early fist bump, you know, on the fourth hole with only 200 people in the gallery.
Yeah.
But that showed me joy, it showed me enthusiasm, it showed me it meant something. I feel really good about this comeback. Now, having said that, how's he going to beat Dustin Johnson? How is he going to beat Ricky Fowler? How's he going to beat Jordan Spieth? I don't know. It's going to be a difficult task. And I'm hopeful that he keeps in perspective what his goals are, because I think it's going to have to be a slower process of what I would call steady improvement, as opposed to going out and winning in San Diego next week. I don't think that's really realistic. But knowing Tiger, he's never going to tee off in the tournament if he doesn't think he can win.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Jared. I think he's going to have to change the way he plays. Because as well as we saw him drive it in the Bahamas, and as far as he drove it, I don't think his body will hold up over any extended period of time to him trying to play a power game. He is such a good putter. He really is brilliant with that putter, that if he plays a little bit of a different style, I think his career will be a longer career. That would argue to me to maybe start looking at some different venues for him to play that typically he doesn't. I would have thought, for example, Hualalai last week would be a really good for him. Never played there. You can't overpower that course. Nobody even tried to. I think he would be brilliant at Hualalai. As opposed to now he's going to Torrey, where he's historically done really well, but it is a long, hard, with deep, rough golf course, and I'm not sure those will be the best venues for him.
And where he's done so well, there's expectations.
Well, there are, but it's not the same course as he did well on either. I think he'll have a better chance, let's say, down the line to win the Masters than he would be the U.S. Open, for example. I think less rough, more maneuvering the ball is the kind of golf where he will thrive at in this sort of second part of his career.
And Mark, you played college golf with DePaul, was it?
I did.
And with Dan Quayle?
I did.
Yeah, weren't you roommates, if I recall correctly?
Yes.
And then you played on the Asian Tour, and then you ended up at Kapalua and decided it was time maybe to not try to, play on the tour. But so you've kind of been there. You've seen so many people that played good high school golf, college golf, and the difference between college golf and having to make it on the tour is really something. But you've been such a friend to so many young people that have gone through that process, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you experienced some of that yourself.
Well, thank you. I was lucky in that I, spent 2.5 years chasing the dream. Played 37 tournaments my last year, all of Europe, all of Asia. Went back to the qualifying school, missed again, and just realized I wasn't good enough. That's a hard thing to say to yourself. The line is so fine. If you take a look at last year's money list on the PGA Tour, I'm going to say if you shot 70 every time you teed off last year on the PGA Tour, 70, I'll bet you made about maybe $1.5 million. If you shot 69 every time you teed off, I'm going to say you made between $5 and $6 million. So that's one shot a day. Difference between 69 and 70 every day.
Wow, that's quite a stat.
Where do you find? I'm not sure that's exactly right.
But I get the idea,
like
right?
That. The point is, where do you find that shot? And it's really hard to find that one.
Well, I grew up dreaming to be on the LPGA, and tried a couple times, and then left it for 20 years, and then tried other little mini tours after 20 years. But that's the fun of golf, is that those of us that have done that, grown up thinking, and very quickly realized, not quickly for you, it was a couple of years, that maybe not for me, but that's what's so great about the game. It's still in us. We can play for many years and play. We all meet people. I played with someone in the Pro-Am yesterday who's 77. He played great.
Well,
So,
it's kind of
what a
back
great
to the
game.
cancer discussion. The great thing about golf is hope. If you think about it, the thing that is so unique about golf is, and I don't care what level of golf you are, there's always hope you're going to shoot your best round ever today. And people love traveling to play golf because there's this hope you're going to see your favorite course ever. This new one is going to be your favorite course you've ever seen. It's that hope, about it that I think makes golf so unique.
And JR, you've become a more frequent golfer, knowing the game and playing, and you're such a good athlete anyway, a hockey player, but your thoughts about someone growing into the game kind of at a little later age, or not later, but not a junior golfer.
Yeah, I have those shots that keep me coming back, and we have plenty of courses here that keep me going out. So I think we'll see the progression, hopefully.
And we're grateful, I know we both are, that you always have time for us, Mark. It's really a pleasure. Mark Rolfing, NBC Golf Channel.
JR and
Emily T.
thanks.
Gale, the Emily T. Gale Talk Story, and JR DeGroote with West Hawaii Today. Gosh, lucky we live Hawaii, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
I love
Thanks,
Detroit too, by the way.
Yeah.
I got one last thing
Okay.
too. I think NBC has the Super Bowl this year.
They do.
Are you a football fan?
I am.
Do you have a loyalty?
No.
Who you got in the out of the Final Four?
I got the Patriots going all the way.
Yeah.
I was at the Super Bowl last year, and I'll tell you, if that team could win that football game, which there was no chance they were going to win that game,
Yeah.
how can you not say they're going to win now when everybody's starting even? I think it's going to be Patriots all the way. I think Jags will give them a good game. I think it would be phenomenal if the Vikings were in their hometown Super Bowl. The Ryder Cup in Minneapolis was the greatest sporting event I think I've ever seen.
Because of the fans.
Just the fans were phenomenal. The level that the athletes performed under the pressure was phenomenal. But I just think this Minneapolis Super Bowl, and I'm a little biased because it's on NBC, but I think Minneapolis is going to be an incredible Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But New England's going to be tough to beat.
All right. In that regard, do you know any of the guys that would be good to talk to about that? Because we're planning on doing some kind of Sunday thing with hopefully their picks or their loyalties.
Let me send you a list. Let me think about it as we're going on. I don't think I have your cell. Give me your cell and I'll send you a text. JR, and it's DeGroote, right? Is there an E?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's 808
I used to have it.
987
Okay.
9303.
9303. And you want some Super Bowl, so I'm going to get you some football guys.
That'd be nice.
And his text number is in a text I sent you a couple days ago. If you don't, if you
so
lose that piece of paper.
Happy to text back and forth. And if you've got
Great.
more questions tonight for me to finish up, you can call me.
I appreciate it, man.
All right.
Okay,
Are you
well,
guys
thanks
all
to
right
the
opening
two
back?
of you.
I'd like to walk back. I've
Yeah.
never seen this
Great.
side
Yeah.
of the course.
Okay, thanks a lot, JR. I'll walk
forget
back
that.
with you. It's always a pleasure. I knew JR's little kid. His mother is a beautiful
Wow.
graphic artist and did a lot of work
Is she?
helping me out. Yeah.
All right, is this your bag?